Bitcoin can be thought of as just a speculative asset, and it's irrelevant to government. It's just the tail of some random, creature, right, in a show. And when you start thinking of it as digital gold, it becomes interesting to macroeconomic investors. But you realize gold is not the right metaphor because you just park $1 billion of gold in a vault. And then you think of it as digital property, and it becomes more powerful because now you realize it generates yield and you can mortgage it. And now it becomes a something that has 100 trillion to 200 trillion of impact. But to your point, what is property? Property is matter. Einstein said you can either destroy energy or destroy matter or create it. Matter becomes energy, energy becomes matter. If I take digital property and I oscillate it at 60 megahertz and I decompose it into 1 million pieces every second and recompose it, and there is no power loss, it's not property anymore, it's energy. It's digital energy. And theoretical Austrian economists might say, oh, it's digital money. But money is too complicated a term. So if we come back to an engineering observation, it's digital energy. Well, it's digital energy is a major, profound breakthrough. And what does that mean? Well, I can power any device with digital energy. I can power one day cars and phones, and I can power a city or a state or a government or a corporation or a trust or a family on digital energy. Digital energy is a major disruption in the world. We talk about Bitcoin being maybe the most disruptive force in the decade. Well, many people think it's the most disruptive force in the century. And I'll give you some examples. We have 66 countries that have dollarized. Their currencies have collapsed. So they need dollars, but the traditional banking system is very inefficient at delivering dollars. So in El Salvador, 2/3 of the population didn't have access to banks, but they don't have a native currency. And so Bitcoin, because it's not just an asset, but it's a network. Bitcoin served as the underlying monetary network to deliver digital dollars and a savings account to 3 million El Salvadorian citizens in 3 weeks. So 3 million people download a mobile app, and they have a checking account with dollars in it, and they have a savings account that's been yielding 130% interest for the past decade. And what was the variable cost for that? Not even the phone. They've already got the phone. The variable cost was a 1 minute or 2 minute download of a mobile application to a phone they already had running over mobile lines. So why should a government care about this? Well, Bitcoin is likely the network that spreads across the entire world. It spreads the US dollar to 6 billion people. Yeah, it would spread to 8 billion people if the Chinese didn't try to block it, right? But it will spread everywhere in the world, to Africa, to Asia. So Bitcoin is spreading the US currency. The US dollar is going to strengthen because of the Bitcoin monetary network running on a protocol called Lightning. Lightning allows you to move any amount of money effectively for free instantaneously. So for example, Fong, you can't send $50 via Apple Pay to a friend in Paris right now. You can hardly send it to Canada. You can't send it to Mexico. You certainly couldn't send it to your mother, if she was living in El Salvador. This is a big deal for countries, right? It's a geopolitical deal because in El Salvador, what that means is they're paying $400 million to Western Union and taking 4 to 8 hours to move money, and they can't move it except 9 to 5. And so Bitcoin and Lightning and that network means that you now have a technology to deliver free, instantaneous remittances to billions and billions of people everywhere in the world for the cost of a mobile phone download. So that's very interesting. The second reason it's interesting to government is that Bitcoin is technology to deliver property rights. And property rights are basic to America. I mean, this country was founded on property rights. And 2.5 billion people don't have property rights. If you live in Zimbabwe, or if you live in Venezuela, and if the currency is collapsed by 99%, or there is no currency, and you have $300, how do you save it for a year? You can't get dollars because you don't have a bank. There's no way that the US banks are setting up in a lot of these countries. You can't get a banking account. So that means you're living hand to mouth. And in the 30 days after you lose your job or you can't find food, you're going to starve and your family's going to starve. So Bitcoin is interesting to government because Bitcoin is an economic imperative to anybody that wants to maintain their wealth or property. That's $500 trillion. That's why Senator Lummis says Bitcoin is a better store of value than the US dollar. Well, it's definitely a better store of value than the Venezuelan bolivar or the Argentine peso, or what's the currency in Afghanistan, right? So she sees that, but the big tech companies like Square and PayPal, they see it as a technology imperative because we can now give a bank to 8 billion people in 1 minute. You're going to do more. You're going to spread your bank faster in 3 weeks in El Salvador than you did in 300 years with conventional banking. So, what happens when Apple and Amazon, Facebook, and Google plug this in? Well, this is major technical geopolitics because the Chinese obviously don't want Apple and Google and Twitter and Facebook to spread through China, right? They want their own Chinese wall. So there's a geopolitical technology interplay here. And then finally, as I've laid out, if you take the technology and the underlying protocol, you've created a technology for property rights for the human race, which means this is a moral imperative. And if your goal is to erase poverty for billions of people, if you don't have a bank, you don't have property. If you don't have property, you don't have property rights. If you don't have property rights, to put this in a biological metaphor, it's like you're a type 1 diabetic. It means you can't store fat. It means you can't conserve economic energy for more than about a week to a month, which means there is no security for your family, for your village, for your city, for your company. If I literally zapped all of your assets from your bank account tomorrow, which by the way, is just what happened in Lebanon last year, they lost 90% of their value in their currency. And then the banks locked their US dollars in and seized them. They lost everything. If I took everything you have, how do you have an aspiration for the future, right? How do you build anything for your family, for your community, for your country? You pretty much stripped hope from the world. And so hope is, very American. America was founded on the premise of the American dream. Come here and build a better life for your family, for yourself. Bitcoin's hope. Bitcoin is a very American thing. And you have a technology which is simultaneously a moral imperative, a technical imperative, and an economic imperative. Embracing it elevates United States as a world power. It will strengthen America. And then rejecting it is just like rejecting electricity or rejecting the internet or rejecting fire or rejecting steel or rejecting satellites or airplanes. It won't end well for the society that rejects technology.